Hello, so today I will be taking you through the editing process for this photograph of a ring, and this will, once you edit it, you can import it into Photoshop, and that will be next video. So we're going to start with this ring, and I've already imported it, but if you were to import the photo, you would go to Library, Import, and then under Source, all the different sources will pop up. So if you have an SD card connected, it will show up here, and you'll be able to press to the SD card and look through the photos and select one of those. I will just show you this process. So if we were to go to downloads, all of my downloaded photos would show up, but they'd all automatically be checked. And since we don't want every single photo uploaded, I can click uncheck all, and it will uncheck all of the photos. And you can go through and press either click and select with your mouse, or you can also press the P key on your device, and it will include it in the import. And you can click the arrow keys on your device to be able to navigate through. But since I already have the photo I'm going to edit, I'm just going to show you that. Now we're back in the main photograph, and this is the photograph that I want to edit. So we're going to hit develop here at the top right hand corner. And some of the areas in Lightroom can be hidden by these arrows. So if you don't see a section, you can click on the arrow and it should show up again. So for this photograph, it's a little bit dark and some of these areas are a little bit dusty. So we're just going to clean that up. First thing I like to start with is the exposure section here. So I can kind of make this a little bit brighter. You can kind of play around with it, like this is too dark, and then somewhere up here is too bright. So I think right around here is perfect. And then we're going to move into contrast. So I like to add a little bit of contrast to the photos. If you add contrast, it becomes more contrasted and makes the darks darker and the highlights brighter. Whereas if you go lower, it kind of washes out the photo. So I tend to go a little bit higher. And for highlights, typically you want to bring those down a little bit. If you press the J key on your keyboard, it will show you if your highlights and shadows are blown out. So if I were to go all the way to the side and press the J key, but then up my whites, you can see it turns red in the areas where it's too bright. So I'm gonna bring the highlights back down to here. And if you want to reset something, so for example, if I drag my whites all the way up here, you can double click and it will return 0. Another thing you can do is add different numbers into the side. So for example, if I want to increase my shadows and be a little more specific, I can increase by 25 or 26 if I want a little higher, 27, and that allows you to really get precise with it if the sliders are a little bit lagging. In this photo, as you can see, the whites are a little bit dull, so we'll bring that up as well. And then also play around with this. I think it looks better. The black's a little bit lower. Okay, and so now we're going to do the white balance, which basically adjusts the temperature. So up here you can make it either cooler or warmer. And the tint makes it either more green or more magenta. So what you can do here is actually click this selector and drag it to a neutral area, and it will correct the white balance for you. So that's a little trick. I'm gonna bring the exposure up a little bit higher. So for the presence, I usually do a little bit of dehaze, but as you dehaze a photograph, the blacks start to get darker. As you can see here, the blue areas are actually just tracking where the black areas become indiscernible. So if we were to put the dehaze all the way here, it gets really cloudy. Whereas if we put the dehaze more, if we dehaze the photo more, it becomes less foggy. So I like to dehaze it a little bit, but not too much, because we don't want it to look too intense. And for almost every photograph, but especially for product photos, you don't want the colors to look too unreal. You want them to stay realistic. So in that case, I'd like to take the vibrance up a little bit and leave the saturation as is, or if it looks a little bit crazy, put the vibrance a little lower, or even take maybe 2 off of the saturation. Okay, and so this is looking okay, but it's still a little bit plain looking. And I'm thinking I'd like the whites a little higher, so that it just really like it to look bright, especially for a product image. That way it makes the image look more appealing, but not too bright, obviously. So the next step would be the tone curve, which I used to ignore the tone curve, but it actually is very helpful for adding interesting depth to your photos. So here, I'm going to, typically the highlights don't need to be brought up, but this photo's a little bit dark, so I'm gonna bring the highlights a little bit higher. And then the lights I usually do bring up. But sometimes you can bring one or the other up. They don't need to be both up necessarily. So I think in this case, actually, I'm gonna bring them both up, but there's not really a rule for anything. It's kind of whatever looks good. So I'm liking this so far. But we can bring the darks. It's like more down versus higher. And kind of like a little bit higher. And then the shadows I typically always bring a little bit down. Okay, so a little bit before and then after. And I don't typically move any of these. So the next is the point curve. So each of these sections represent shadows here, and then darks, lights, and the brightest highlights. And so this section at the very top is just like pure white, and this is pure black. So if we were to get rid of the pure black in the photos, we'd bring this up. As you can see, it slowly gets whiter and whiter and whiter. And then the closer we get to the top, then it becomes pure white at the top. And then if we were to do the opposite, we can bring this down, and it just becomes completely black. So typically what I like to do is add 3 points, and this is called like the basic S curve, is if you bring the lights up and the darks a little bit down. But I actually don't really like this. I typically do something else where I get rid of all of these. I put a dot, so you just create the dot by pressing, and if you quickly press, see sometimes it does that where it'll kind of bring up or down, bring the dot up or down without you doing anything, so you can just do a quick press and it should be fine. So each of these dots now controls a separate area. So usually the darkest of darks goes down, because otherwise it's washed out like this. It's a little bit darker, and then this, sometimes I like it darker, sometimes lighter. I think in this case a little bit darker. Then get rid of that. And then I can play around with the other dots kind of until it looks appealing. You can also get rid of your dots along the way. There's not really any rules. You can move them around. Like, this is my special method for every tone curve, is to just add, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 7 dots. And if I want the darks more teal, which typically I do, I bring that down, and then teal red, maybe more teal. And then the highlights can be more red. Yeah. I want to add a quick explanation for what I'm doing here. So essentially I'm adjusting the red channel and also the green channel, which the red channel is the teal and red colored. So if you go either more teal or more red, and then the green channel is the same thing, but for green and magenta. And so essentially I'm just adjusting those to my liking. There isn't really a specific process to it, other than adding the 7 dots and then adjusting those. Okay, and then this final curve controls the warmth and the coolness. So you can adjust the overall universal white balance, which we did above with the drop tool, or you can change the white balance here for warmer shadows, warmer highlights, cooler highlights, so you can get a little more detailed, which I am doing right now. So I typically like to bring the highlights a little bit cooler, not so that the white turns blue, but so that it is pure white. And the shadows, a little bit warmer, but then the darkest a little bit cooler. So it looks like before the tone curves and then after. I do think that it adds a huge difference. And then if any of the photographs have crazy colors that you don't want in the photo, you can do point color to select the photo's colors. I'm okay with most of these colors. I think maybe I'll change some things. You can change the tone of the yellow to be more red or more green. Which I'm actually going to make it a little more green and add a little bit of luminance. We will move to color grading, which is also just a bonus thing that can be done, but typically for gold pieces, I like to add a little bit of an orange shadow and then play around with the midtones depending on what gold it is. I do like a blue midtone for contrast, but a yellow midtone is also nice. I think for this, I'm going to go with a blue midtone. I typically do not mess with the highlights because I do like the highlights to be pretty much white, but you can change them a little bit. For this, I think I'm gonna not do the highlights. And these sliders control the brightness and darkness of each. So let's adjust this a little bit, but the midtones and shadows are a little bit lower, and the highlights are a little bit brighter. So it looks like before and after. Very subtle change. Okay, next is the detail. So if you use denoise, it runs, it takes a few minutes, but it runs an AI to get rid of, as you can see, there is a lot of noise in this photo, so it'll get rid of that. But I don't typically like to use it unless it's very necessary. But in this case, I'm going to increase the sharpness by a lot because we really want a detailed photo, but we don't want it like way too sharp because then you get these details you don't want. So a little bit before this red area here is usually okay. And then for these product photos, I typically increase the masking of the sharpening. That way it's like, it gives a little more clarity to the photo. And I don't usually touch either of these settings. And then for our manual noise reduction, this is going to make the photo smoother. So this is what it looks like fully up. It makes it very, very smooth, as you can see, which is fine, but it loses a lot of detail in the ring. So I'm only going to increase it by a little bit. And then we don't really have color noise here, but in case there's a little bit, I like to bring that up. For lens corrections, it's important to press both of these and select the make. So this is the camera, this is shot on the Nikon, and then this is the lens selection. So this is, I think it's already on here, yes, the 18 to 140 millimeter, and the profile of the lens. And so it'll automatically get rid of what it needs to, but in the case that your photograph has like, this photo is a bad example because it doesn't have it, but it has like sometimes a green or purple outline around it. If that doesn't go away, you can use the manual setting to select the color that it is and select the dropper to defringe. So next is transform. So this will get rid of any distortions and make the photo really nice and even, which is good, especially for the photos that are of flat things. So here's an example. See it on the left side? This ancient Greek coin, I've used the transform setting. I think I did guided, which puts dots and lines around the object, and that really makes sure that the lines in the photo are very like parallel on either side, and it makes it more visually appealing. But typically you can just do auto. For this one, it doesn't really need much of a correction because it's a round object. And then calibration, I don't always do this, but you can adjust the different colors. And so if you are to do this, which I do sometimes, it's important to make sure that the colors of the product look the same in person. You don't want to like make it this like, you know, like this isn't a green ring, so I'm not going to do that. But it does help with making the ring a more accurate color. Okay, and then the final step of basic editing is just going to be to straighten the photo. So this photo, there's not really anything that needs to be straightened, but sometimes you can automatically straighten it, yeah. So another secret, insider secret, if you press the O on your keyboard, it will get you all these different grids. I'd say this is the most basic grid, the rule of thirds. And so having your subject in one of these corners or in the middle will make it more appealing. I should note that if you're taking photos for the Shopify, because you're going to crop it into a square later anyway, this step doesn't actually matter that much. But yes, that is the basic Adobe Lightroom editing. For this ring, I'm going to go in afterwards and do some other things to it. So I'm going to use the erase tool to remove some of these little scratches and also the masking tool to add some interesting lighting. But that's the end for the basic editing.